Right now, while you are sitting here, something is happening inside your body that no one in a white coat has ever taken the time to explain to you properly. Not because they don't know, not because they don't care, because the system gives them 7 minutes. 7 minutes to review your labs, check your feet, adjust your medication, answer every question, and document everything for legal compliance. Then move to the next patient. 7 minutes. That is what your blood sugar education gets. And in those 7 minutes, there is one ancient seed that physically changes what happens to your blood sugar every single time you eat. Not with a drug, not with a pill, not with some compound extracted in a laboratory and pressed into a tablet, with a gel that forms inside your digestive tract and creates a physical barrier between your food and your bloodstream. But here is what nobody in that 7 minute appointment has time to mention. Most people over 60 who are fighting high blood sugar, who are counting carbs, taking their medication, watching portions, doing every single thing their doctor asked, are missing this one piece. Not because it doesn't work, because the system never handed it to them. And if you are missing it right now, your numbers may keep climbing while you keep doing everything right and wonder what you are doing wrong. You are not doing anything wrong. That is what I need you to hear first, before anything else. Have you ever had a doctor sit down with you and explain this in enough detail to actually understand it? Type yes or no in the comments right now. I want to know, because what I'm about to show you changes how you think about blood sugar management permanently. And stay with me through this entire video, because the number one benefit of this seed, the one I saved for last, connects to the most talked about diabetes drug in the world right now. The drug your neighbors are injecting once a week and paying over $1,000 a month for. The chia seed activates the same biological pathway for $3 a bag, and I am going to show you exactly how and why. Now, before I get into the ranked benefits, I need to tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy is 71 years old, retired school librarian, lives in Ohio with her husband of 46 years. She grows tomatoes every summer, keeps a meticulous food journal, takes her metformin at precisely 7:15 every morning without fail. She is the kind of patient who does everything right, and her endocrinologist says so, every single appointment. Dorothy, you are doing everything right. And yet for 3 years running, her A1C has not moved below 8.2. 3 years of perfect compliance, and the numbers refuse to cooperate. I want you to picture her sitting across from me that first time, hands folded in her lap, that very particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep. The deeper kind, the kind that comes from fighting as hard as you possibly can and still losing ground. She looked at me and said, "I feel like a failure, and I honestly don't know what else there is to try." I hear this from patients like Dorothy more than I should, and every time I do, something tightens in my chest, because the failure is not theirs. The failure belongs to a system that handed them incomplete information, called it treatment, and moved on to the next appointment. Let me explain exactly what I mean and why this matters for every person watching this video right now. Here's what the system does not have time to explain. After 60, your body handles blood sugar through a set of mechanisms that are genuinely different from how they worked at 40. This is not a moral failing. It is not lack of effort. It is biology. But it is also biology that nobody walked you through when you needed to know it. 4 changes happen in your body after 60 that most blood sugar management strategies completely ignore. 4 silent shifts that are working against you even when you do everything else correctly. First, your cellular hydration efficiency declines. Your cells need adequate water to process glucose smoothly. Think of this difference. A hydrated cell is like a fresh grape, plump, responsive. Glucose enters and gets processed efficiently. A dehydrated cell is like a raisin, shrunken, stiff. Glucose cannot enter as easily. It stays in your bloodstream longer, and most people over 60 are mildly dehydrated almost every single day without feeling thirsty, because the second change explains why. Second, your thirst mechanism becomes impaired. This one genuinely surprises people when I explain it. Your body stops sending clear thirst signals the way it did when you were younger. The mechanism that says drink water now becomes less sensitive after 60, so you don't drink enough, which makes the first problem dramatically worse. Third, your kidneys lose approximately 30% of their filtering capacity. This is a natural part of aging, but it means your kidneys are working under increased load to clear glucose from your blood, and under that load, they fall behind. And fourth, this one is critical. Pay close attention to this. Your skeletal muscle mass begins to decline 3 to 8% per decade after 60. The medical term is sarcopenia. And the reason this matters for blood sugar is something most endocrinologists never explain in a 7-minute appointment. I'm going to explain it in full in just a few minutes because it changes everything about why your numbers behave the way they do. Now, here is what the ancient seed I'm about to tell you about does. Every single one of these 4 changes, this seed addresses, not one of them, all 4, simultaneously, from 1 tablespoon, twice a day. But first, let me finish telling you about Dorothy. At her last appointment before she found me, Dorothy's endocrinologist looked at her labs, sat down, and said very gently, very professionally, "Dorothy, I think it's time to talk about insulin." Dorothy had been dreading that sentence for 3 years. She had watched her mother start insulin at 68. She knew what came after: the twice-daily injections, the hypoglycemic episodes at 2 in the morning, the 3 hospitalizations in 4 years, the slow dismantling of independence over 6 years of declining control. She was not ready for that sentence. She asked her doctor, "Is there anything at all that we haven't tried?" The doctor glanced at the clock on the wall, then back at Dorothy, and said, "Honestly, you're already doing everything we'd recommend. 7 minutes. That was what the system allowed." Dorothy went home, sat at her kitchen table for a long time, then did what every determined 71-year-old does when the system says it has run out of answers. She started researching on her own. 3 weeks later, she sent me an email. Subject line, "Found something. Is this actually real?" She was asking about chia seeds. Here is what I told her. The research is real. The mechanism is real, but I need you to understand it properly. Because if you go in expecting the wrong thing, you will miss the actual benefit entirely, and you will quit in week 1. And that would be a significant mistake. Let me show you what this seed does inside your body. 7 benefits, ranked from important to genuinely life-changing. Stay with me through all of them, because they build on each other. Each one sets the stage for the one before it. And the number 1 benefit, the one waiting at the end of this list, I believe is the most important thing I will say in this entire video. But first, I need to clear up 3 myths that are circulating about this seed, because if you go in with wrong expectations, you won't understand what you're seeing, and you won't stick with it long enough for the research to matter. Myth 1, chia seeds will cure your diabetes. Stop. Full stop. That is not what the research shows. Not even close. Anyone using the word cure next to a food is either misinformed or trying to sell you something. What the research shows is that chia seeds meaningfully reduce postprandial glucose spikes, the surge that happens after you eat, through a physical mechanism, not a pharmaceutical one. It is a tool, a powerful tool that works alongside your medication, not instead of it. Myth 2. You need enormous amounts for it to work. Also wrong. Clinical trials use doses as small as 7 gram, roughly 1 teaspoon, and still measured significant blood sugar reductions after meals. You do not need to eat half a cup of this every day and feel like you swallowed a sponge. 1 to 2 tablespoons used correctly. And I will tell you exactly how at the end is sufficient to activate all 7 mechanisms I'm about to explain. Myth 3. Seeds don't matter. Just take your medication and stop overcomplicating it. I have heard physicians say this. Not most physicians, but enough. Here is my response to that. Metformin is an excellent medication. I have enormous respect for it, one of the most studied, most reliable diabetes medications in existence. But metformin works primarily by reducing glucose production in your liver, hepatic gluconeogenesis. That is what it targets. It does almost nothing Almost nothing is to slow the absorption of sugar from your food as it passes through your small intestine after a meal. That is a completely separate mechanism, a completely different stage of the same process. And that is exactly where this seed steps in. It fills a gap that your medication was never designed to address. They are not competing, they are complementary. One addresses the liver, one addresses the gut, working together. They cover more of the problem than either one can alone. This is Salvia hispanica, commonly known as chia, a tiny seed from the mint family, eaten for over 5,000 years. The Aztecs called it their running food. Warriors carried it into battle. A single tablespoon sustained energy for hours without spiking blood sugar. Modern clinical research from universities in Toronto, Chile, Kuwait, and Spain has confirmed exactly why. Let me show you all 7 mechanisms, starting from the foundation and building to the one that changes everything. Benefit number 7, the omega-3 fatty acid foundation. Here is what most doctors don't have time to explain in a 7-minute visit. But I want you to really hear this because it is the reason everything else on this list works as well as it does. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the primary drivers of insulin resistance. Your cells don't stop responding to insulin randomly. They stop responding because inflammatory signals are disrupting the communication between insulin and your cell receptors. I want you to picture a highway at rush hour. Your insulin is the delivery truck. Your cell is the destination. Under normal conditions, the truck arrives in minutes, but when chronic systemic inflammation is present, every lane is blocked. Construction zones everywhere. The truck is sitting in traffic going nowhere. That is what low-grade inflammation does to insulin signaling. The insulin is there, your receptors are there, but the inflammatory noise is so loud and so constant that the signal gets lost. Chia seeds are one of the richest plant sources of ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, the plant form of omega-3 fatty acid. 1 ounce, about 2 tablespoons, delivers approximately 5 grams of ALA, more than most fish oil supplements provide in an entire day, and you are getting it from a whole food, not a capsule, not a gelatin pill that leaves a taste in your mouth for 3 hours. And ALA has been shown across multiple studies to reduce inflammatory markers. C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, TNF-alpha. These are the signaling molecules that jam insulin's communication with your cells, not overnight, not dramatically in a single week, but steadily, consistently, over weeks and months of daily consumption. The inflammation quiets, the highway clears, insulin starts reaching the cells that need it. Now, here is something most people do not know. Your body cannot manufacture omega-3 fatty acids, cannot do it, does not have the enzyme pathway. You must get them from food. If you are not eating fatty fish 3 times a week, and let's be realistic about this, most people over 60 are not doing that consistently, you may be deficient in omega-3s, and that deficiency has been quietly amplifying your insulin resistance for years without appearing on any standard lab test. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, 5 grams of ALA, approximately 12 cents every single day. That is your anti-inflammatory foundation. Everything else I'm about to show you builds on top of it. Benefit number 6, complete protein and muscle preservation. This one surprises people because most think of chia as a fiber food, the little seeds that turn into pudding, not a protein source. But chia seeds contain between 15 and 25% protein by weight. And unlike most plant proteins, unlike beans, rice, wheat, or corn, chia provides all 9 essential amino acids, the complete set. That is genuinely rare for a plant food. Now, here is why that matters enormously for blood sugar in people over 60. Here is what most people get told about blood sugar and never fully understand. Muscle is your #1 glucose disposal system. Your skeletal muscle is the largest tissue in your body that absorbs glucose from your bloodstream. When insulin signals your body to clear glucose out of the blood after a meal, where does the majority of it go? Your muscles. 70 to 80% of glucose disposal after a meal happens in skeletal muscle tissue. But after 60, you are losing muscle, 3 to 8% per decade. And every pound of muscle you lose means less capacity to pull glucose out of your blood, fewer glucose receptors, less absorption capacity, less glucose disposal. Picture your muscle tissue as a parking lot. Your blood glucose after a meal is the traffic. Insulin is the traffic controller directing cars to empty spaces. When muscle mass is adequate, the parking lot has enough spaces for all the cars after a meal. Traffic flows through, blood sugar normalizes. But as muscle mass declines over the decades, parking spaces disappear. The same amount of traffic arrives after every meal, but there is nowhere to put it. The cars circle, they stay in the bloodstream. Blood sugar stays elevated longer after every meal. Your blood sugar rises, not because you ate too many carbohydrates, not because your medication stopped working, because your parking lot quietly got smaller over the years and nobody measured it. This is one of the most underdiagnosed drivers of worsening blood sugar in people over 60. Doctors look at A1C. They adjust the medication. They almost never measure muscle mass. They almost never say, Dorothy, your blood sugar is rising because you've lost 8 pounds of muscle since your last DEXA scan. That conversation happens almost never. Chia protein supports muscle maintenance. I want to be honest about the limits. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds will not replace the protein in a full chicken breast. That is not what I'm claiming. But consumed daily, as part of a consistent protocol, it contributes to preserving the tissue that is your primary glucose disposal system. And here is the second way the protein helps. When you eat chia seeds with a carbohydrate-heavy meal, the protein slows gastric emptying on its own. Protein takes significantly longer to digest than simple carbohydrates. Food leaves your stomach more slowly. Carbohydrates are released into the small intestine more gradually. Less rush, less spike. Not from the mucilage alone, from the protein working simultaneously. Muscle protection, glucose disposal, gastric slowing, 3 mechanisms from the protein content alone. Now, I want to get back to Dorothy for a moment, because what happened when her email arrived tells you something important about what was missing from 3 years of otherwise excellent diabetes management. When Dorothy wrote asking if chia seeds were real, I didn't send her a yes or a no. I asked her to send me 3 months of food logs and her most recent labs. When I looked at what she had been eating, I was honestly impressed. Her diet was genuinely excellent. Low refined carbohydrates, high fiber, lean protein at every meal. She had been following every guideline her endocrinologist had given her, doing it correctly, but one pattern jumped out immediately. Dorothy's postprandial numbers, her blood sugar readings 2 hours after her largest meal, were consistently the highest numbers of her day, not her fasting glucose, not her morning readings, her after-meal numbers, every single afternoon, climbing to levels that were doing quiet cumulative damage, meal after meal, day after day, 365 days a year for 3 years, and in all 3 months of food logs. Dorothy had never once eaten anything that specifically slowed the rate at which glucose moved from her gut into her bloodstream. The food was right, the timing was reasonable, the medication was consistent, but there was no physical barrier between her food and her capillaries. That was the missing piece, the piece that 7 minutes never covered. Benefit number 5, antioxidant protection for your pancreas. Now, I need you to stay with me here for 60 seconds before I get into this, because what I'm about to explain is the mechanism that most people never hear. And once you understand it, you will understand why protecting what you still have matters as much as treating what is already damaged. Your pancreas produces insulin through specialized cells called beta cells. After 60, those beta cells face increasing oxidative stress, free radicals, reactive oxygen species, unstable molecules generated by normal metabolism, by inflammation, by elevated blood sugar itself, that damage everything they contact. Membranes, proteins, DNA. Over years of accumulated oxidative damage, your pancreas produces less insulin, Not because it is lazy, not because of anything you did, because the cellular machinery is wearing down. The factory equipment is corroding. Picture your pancreas as a precision manufacturing plant. Oxidative stress is corrosion. Year after year, the corrosion builds on the equipment. Antioxidants are the anti-corrosion treatment. They do not rebuild machinery that is already destroyed, but they slow the corrosion on the machinery that is still functioning. They protect what remains. Chia seeds contain a remarkable cocktail of polyphenolic antioxidants: chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, quercetin, camphorol, miracetin. These compounds are molecular interceptors. They neutralize free radicals before those radicals can reach your beta cells. Quercetin specifically, this compound has received significant attention in diabetes research. It has been shown to prevent the oxidation of fats, proteins, and DNA simultaneously. 3 layers of cellular protection from a single naturally occurring compound. Does this mean chia seeds will regenerate damaged beta cells? No. I want to be direct about that. Once beta cells are significantly destroyed, they do not easily come back. The science is clear on this point, but can chia seeds help protect the beta cells that are still functioning? The ones that are still producing insulin for you right now? The evidence strongly suggests yes. And here is what frustrates me about the current state of nutrition education. You can buy quercetin as an isolated supplement for $20 to $30 a bottle, or you can eat 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, get quercetin plus chlorogenic acid plus caffeic acid plus camphorol plus miracetin, all working together in the natural ratios that exist in the food. Your body processes food differently than it processes isolated compounds. The synergy between naturally occurring compounds is not replicated by taking each one separately in pill form. And the companies selling you the $30 bottle understand this perfectly well. If this information is new to you, if you have made it this far and you feel like you're hearing things your doctor never had time to explain, hit like right now so the algorithm shows this to someone else who needs it, someone who is sitting with Dorothy's lab results, doing Dorothy's level of work, and still waiting for the one missing piece. Benefit number 4, postprandial glucose reduction, the clinical evidence. Now let me show you the hard science. Peer-reviewed, double-blind, published in major journals, and I want to show you the numbers directly because these are the numbers that matter most. Researchers at the University of Toronto, led by Dr. Vladimir Vuksan, one of the world's leading authorities on dietary fiber and glycemic response, ran multiple clinical trials specifically on chia seeds and what they do to blood sugar after a meal. In a 2010 randomized controlled trial published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the research team found that whole grain chia significantly reduced postprandial glucose excursion compared to control. The mechanism they identified was the mucilage, the gel-like coating that forms around the seed when it contacts liquid, physically slowing the rate at which sugar moved from the gut into the bloodstream. Physical, not chemical. Physical. That distinction matters enormously. This is not a drug blocking an enzyme. This is a gel creating a wall. Fundamental physics. In a 2013 follow-up dose-response trial published in the same journal, researchers tested doses of 7 grams, 15 grams, and 24 grams of chia. Both whole and ground seeds reduced postprandial blood glucose, and the results were dose-dependent. The more chia used, the greater the glucose reduction, linear, predictable, reproducible. A 2020 study from Spain used a gastrointestinal simulation model, an artificial gut, a machine designed to replicate exactly what happens inside your digestive tract: stomach acid, intestinal enzymes, absorption rates, transit time, the complete process. They introduced chia seed mucilage to this system and measured glucose absorption at the intestinal level. The result: up to 50% reduction in glucose bioaccessibility. 50%. The glucose dialysis retardation index, the measure of how much the mucilage delayed sugar from passing through the intestinal barrier, peaked at over 53% by the end of small intestine simulation. 53% delay from a gel formed by a seed. Let that number settle for a moment. Now, Here is where I need to be completely honest with you, because I will not cherry pick data. A 2020 meta analysis reviewed 8 randomized controlled trials involving 362 participants. The conclusion: chia seeds did not significantly reduce fasting blood glucose or HbA1c when combining all the study data together. I am not hiding that. I am showing it to you directly because it tells us something important. Chia seeds are not a fasting glucose drug. They are not going to lower your morning reading. They are not going to replace your metformin. Anyone who tells you that is not telling you the truth. What chia seeds target, specifically and powerfully, is the postprandial spike. And for people over 60 managing diabetes or prediabetes, those after meal spikes are where the quiet damage accumulates. Every uncontrolled spike washes excess sugar against vessel walls, kidney capillaries, nerve endings, not enough to feel in a single meal, enough to matter across thousands of meals over months and years. Chia doesn't stop the water, it converts a river into a stream. And over time, that difference is the difference between complications and control. Now, let me tell you what Dorothy's first week actually looked like. I told her to start with 1 tablespoon, soaked in 8 ounces of room temperature water for 10 minutes. Drink the entire glass 15 minutes before her largest meal of the day. That's it. Week 1. By day 3, she sent me a message. 2 words. Bathroom. A lot. I sent her 3 words back. Normal. Keep going. Because here is what was actually happening. The prebiotic fiber in chia seeds was feeding gut bacteria that had been understimulated for years. Those bacteria were multiplying rapidly, adapting to a new substrate. Your digestive system responds to that adjustment in a predictable way. It is uncomfortable. It lasts about 5 to 7 days, and then it normalizes. Here is what I told Dorothy about this, and what I want you to hear directly. Most people quit at day 3. They feel the discomfort and interpret it as a sign that something is wrong, that their body is rejecting the seed, that it isn't for them. But the discomfort at day 3 is not a warning. It is confirmation. It means the fiber is working exactly the way it is supposed to work. The cells are responding. The bacteria are adapting. Your gut is doing something it hasn't been asked to do in years. Push through 1 week. The discomfort resolves. And what comes after? The changes that begin in week 2 and week 3, those are the reason I'm spending this time with you today. Week 2, Dorothy added the 2nd tablespoon, stirred into her morning oatmeal. The bathroom visits had normalized, and she noticed something she hadn't expected. Her afternoon cravings, the 3 o'clock pull towards something sweet that had been her nemesis for years, were quieter, not gone, quieter. She hadn't changed anything else. Just the protocol. I told her that was the protein and fiber combination activating satiety hormones, peptide YY and GLP-1. These hormones signal to your brain that you are adequately fed, and when they are activated properly, the cravings diminish without willpower, without counting, without white-knuckling through the afternoon. Biology doing its job, because she finally gave it the right inputs. Benefit number 3, blood pressure reduction and the vascular loop. Now, some of you are thinking, blood pressure? This video is about blood sugar. Stay with me here for 60 seconds, because blood sugar and blood pressure are not separate problems in the body. They are the same problem expressed through 2 different systems simultaneously. And when you see the connection, everything becomes clear. A 2021 randomized controlled trial, 42 adults with confirmed type 2 diabetes. One group consumed 40 grams of chia seeds daily for 12 weeks on top of their normal diet and medication. The other group changed nothing. Same medications, same lifestyle, just the addition of chia to one group. The chia group showed a statistically significant reduction in systolic blood pressure compared to control. Systolic, the top number, the one your cardiologist watches most carefully for stroke risk, the one that matters most when it comes to damage to the vessels feeding your kidneys and brain. And these were people already on diabetes medication, already being medically managed. The chia reduced their blood pressure in addition to, and on top of, everything their current treatment was already doing. But here is the loop I want you to understand, because understanding the loop changes why this matters so much. High blood sugar damages blood vessels. Damaged blood vessels raise blood pressure. High blood pressure damages kidneys. Damaged kidneys worsen blood sugar clearance, which raises blood sugar further, which damages more vessels. And the cycle continues, quietly, year after year, getting a little worse with each rotation. Most people don't even feel it happening until something breaks. A 2017 randomized controlled trial, 77 patients, double-blind, 6 months, published in Nutrition, Metabolism, and Cardiovascular Diseases. The Chia group showed a 39% reduction in C-reactive protein, CRP, the gold standard marker for systemic inflammation in clinical practice, 39% in 6 months. From a seed, not a statin, not a biologic injection requiring prior authorization and monthly lab monitoring. A seed, $3. The omega-3 fatty acids in chia reduce inflammation in blood vessel walls. The potassium and magnesium support vascular relaxation. Your vessels stay flexible instead of stiffening progressively. The fiber slows sugar absorption, which reduces the glucose spikes that damage vessel walls after every meal, not attacking the problem from one angle, applying pressure to the entire destructive loop from multiple directions simultaneously. Benefit number 2, the mucilage gel, a physical barrier against sugar absorption. All right, this is the mechanism that makes chia seeds genuinely unique. And I want you to really picture this, because understanding the physics is what makes you commit to using it correctly. When chia seeds contact any liquid, water, saliva, stomach acid, intestinal fluid, the outer coating of the seed hydrates and expands into a viscous gel-like substance called mucilage. This gel can absorb up to 27 times the seed's own weight in water. 27 times. Now picture that gel forming inside your small intestine, right at the exact location where sugar from your meal is absorbed into your bloodstream, right at the wall of your gut where glucose molecules pass through into your blood vessels. The gel creates a physical diffusion barrier, a thick, viscous layer between your food and your intestinal wall. The sugar from whatever you just ate, the glucose, the fructose, whatever carbohydrate was in that meal, it has to diffuse through this gel layer before it can reach the intestinal wall and enter your blood. And that takes dramatically more time. Picture crossing a room, empty room, 5 seconds to cross. Now fill that room waist deep with thick mud. You can still get to the other side. Nobody is stopping you. But instead of 5 seconds, it takes 2 minutes. That is what chia mucilage does to glucose in your gut. The sugar still gets absorbed, your body still processes the meal. But it enters your bloodstream in a measured, gradual flow instead of a sudden surge. And this is fundamentally different from how pharmaceutical approaches work. Drugs like acarbose, which doctors prescribe for postprandial glucose control, work by blocking the enzymes that break starch into sugar. They interrupt the chemical process. Chia doesn't interrupt chemistry, it slows physics. 2 completely different stages of digestion, which means, and pay close attention to this, they can potentially complement each other. If you are currently taking acarbose, chia seeds do not duplicate what it does. They add an additional layer of protection at a different point in the process. One blocks the breakdown, the other slows the absorption. Together, they cover more of the problem than either one alone. A 2023 randomized double-blind crossover study incorporated chia seeds into baked cookies at 3 different doses: 3 grams, 5 grams, and 7 grams. Tested against control cookies containing no chia. The 7-gram chia cookies reduced postprandial blood glucose by approximately 30% compared to the control cookies. 30% from cookies that had chia seeds baked into them. This is a measurable, reproducible physical mechanism. It occurs every single time you eat chia seeds with a meal. Every time. Because physics doesn't take days off, and it doesn't require a prescription. Now, I need to address safety directly, because some of you are on medication. And this is not optional information. If you are taking warfarin, Coumadin, or any anticoagulant, or if you are on aspirin therapy or clopidogrel, tell your doctor before adding daily chia seeds. Chia has a mild blood thinning effect from its omega-3 content. Combined with anticoagulant medication, this can push your INR levels outside the safe range. Your doctor needs to monitor this. This is a documented drug-nutrient interaction. If you are on insulin or any sulfonylurea, monitor your blood sugar more frequently in the first 2 to 3 weeks after starting chia. The postprandial reduction is real. In some patients, it compounds the glucose-lowering effect of medication. That is generally positive, but it means you and your doctor should track the numbers together during the adjustment period. If you have a history of kidney stones, particularly calcium oxalate stones, have a conversation with your doctor before starting. Chia seeds contain oxalates. For most people, this is not a significant concern. For people with a history of oxalate stones, worth discussing your individual risk. And if you have any esophageal conditions or significant swallowing difficulties, never eat chia seeds dry. Always soaked, always with liquid, non-negotiable. Benefit number 1. The reason I made this video. Every other food, every other supplement, every other compound that affects blood sugar works through one mechanism, one pathway, one angle of attack. Berberine activates AMPK enzyme pathways. Cinnamon improves insulin receptor binding sensitivity. Chromium supports glucose transporter function. Alpha-lipoic acid scavenges free radicals at the cellular level. Each one does one thing, one mechanism, one stage of the problem. Chia seeds work through at least 5 simultaneous mechanisms at the same time, in the same serving, from the same 2 tablespoons. Mechanism 1, the mucilage gel physically slows glucose absorption through the intestinal wall. Physics. Mechanism 2, the soluble fiber delays gastric emptying. Food leaves your stomach more slowly. Carbohydrates are released into the small intestine more gradually. The same meal produces a smaller, slower blood sugar rise. Mechanism 3, the protein content triggers satiety hormones, peptide YY and GLP-1, that reduce your overall food intake. You eat less without willpower, without counting. The hormones signal to your brain that you are adequately fed. The cravings quiet down on their own. Mechanism 4. The omega-3 fatty acids reduce chronic low-grade inflammation that drives insulin resistance at the cellular level. The highway clears. Insulin reaches the cells. And mechanism 5. This is the one that stopped me when I first read the research. This is the one that changed how I think about blood sugar management entirely. The fermentation of chia seed fiber in your large intestine produces short-chain fatty acids, specifically butyrate, and butyrate stimulates the release of GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. Let me tell you why those 3 letters matter more than almost anything else I have said today. GLP-1 is the exact same hormone pathway that Ozempic targets, the exact same one. Semaglutide, the drug name for Ozempic, is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. It mimics GLP-1 in your body, and it currently costs between $1,000 and $1,200 per month. The fermentation of chia seed fiber in your large intestine naturally produces GLP-1 stimulus through that exact same biological pathway. For $3 a bag, sitting on the shelf at every grocery store in America. Now, stop. I need to be responsible here, because this is where honesty matters most. Is 2 tablespoons of chia seeds going to produce the same GLP-1 response as a weekly Ozempic injection? Absolutely not. Not even close. The dose-response relationship between food-derived butyrate and injectable pharmaceutical semaglutide is not comparable in magnitude. I am not claiming that. If anyone tells you chia seeds replace Ozempic, they are not being honest with you. But the fact that the same biological pathway is being activated, the same hormone is being naturally stimulated by a food that has been consumed for 5,000 years, that costs $3 a bag, that sits in the baking aisle of your grocery store, and that your endocrinologist may never once have mentioned to you during all those 7-minute appointments. I need you to sit with that for a moment. Really sit with it. It is not a conspiracy. There is no meeting where endocrinologists vote to hide chia seeds. It is something simpler and honestly, sadder. Doctors have 7 minutes, 7 minutes to review labs, check feet, adjust medication, answer questions, document everything, and prepare for the next patient. They do not have time to explain the biochemistry of mucilage gel formation and short chain fatty acid fermentation and GLP-1 stimulus from dietary fiber. Faster to adjust a dose, write a script, move on. The system doesn't reward education, it rewards throughput every time. But you have time right now. You have been here. You've given this the attention it deserves. And you deserve to know that a food exists. A real food, not a supplement, not a pharmaceutical, not a trend that showed up last Tuesday, that addresses 5 of the primary mechanisms driving your blood sugar higher every single day, from every single meal. That is why it is number 1. Now, back to Dorothy. 6 months after she started the protocol, Dorothy had her regular labs drawn, went to her endocrinologist's appointment, sat in the waiting room she had been sitting in for 3 years, went into the exam room, waited for the numbers. Her A1C came back at 7.4, 8.2 to 7.4 in 6 months, without changing her medication, without any new prescriptions, without anything except the piece the system never had time to hand her. Her endocrinologist looked at the chart, looked at Dorothy, and said, "Whatever you've been doing differently, keep doing it." Dorothy reached into her purse and pulled out the small blue notebook she had been keeping on her kitchen counter since week 1. She placed it on the exam table and opened it to the first page. The doctor picked it up, flipped through the pages slowly. The week-by-week blood sugar readings, the notes about cravings, the energy levels after meals, the protocol written out in Dorothy's neat librarian handwriting. He took a photograph of 2 pages with his phone, and Dorothy told me later, and I want you to hear her exact words. For the first time in 3 years, the insulin conversation is officially off the table. Now, I want to be honest about Dorothy's results. They are on the better end of what I typically see. Not everyone will see A1C movement of that magnitude in 6 months. Results vary. Some patients see measurable changes in 8 weeks. Some take longer. What the research demonstrates is that the majority of people who commit to the daily protocol see meaningful improvement in their postprandial glucose numbers. The direction is what matters, not the speed. If Dorothy's story sounds like your life right now, if that exhaustion behind her eyes when she first sat down is familiar to you, you still have time to add the piece the system left out. But before you go to the store tomorrow morning, I need to show you 4 mistakes that will cancel every benefit I just described, things that most wellness websites will never warn you about. And if you get even one of these wrong, you could make your situation worse. Mistake number 1, eating chia seeds dry. This one ends up in emergency room reports. Multiple documented cases. Chia seeds must contact liquid to form the mucilage gel. If you eat them dry, if you toss them in your mouth, swallow them with a quick sip of water, 2 things happen. First, you get 0 mucilage benefit, no gel forms, no barrier, no glucose slowing. Second, dry chia seeds absorb moisture from your esophagus and stomach before forming a proper gel. They can swell in place in people who have any history of swallowing difficulty or esophageal narrowing. This has caused serious obstructions requiring medical intervention. Always soak them. Even 5 minutes in water starts meaningful gel formation. Stir once, let sit. Drink the entire glass every single time without exception. Mistake number 2, taking chia at the same time as blood-thinning medication. I covered this earlier, but it bears repeating because it is not theoretical. If you are on warfarin, Coumadin, aspirin therapy, clopidogrel, or any anticoagulant, tell your doctor that you are adding chia seeds before you start. Request more frequent INR monitoring during the first month. This is a documented drug-nutrient interaction. The risk is real. Mistake number 3, mixing chia seeds with high-sugar beverages. I have seen people make chia drinks with mango juice, grape juice, commercial apple juice with 40 grams of sugar per cup, 10 teaspoons of sugar, in 1 glass. Yes, the mucilage gel will slow absorption somewhat, but you are deploying a speed reducer inside a sugar bomb. The gel helps. The sugar still overwhelms your system's capacity to manage the spike in a single sitting. Use water, plain, unsweetened almond milk, coconut water with no added sugar. If the beverage contains more than 5 grams of sugar per serving, it is not the right vehicle for this protocol. Mistake number 4, expecting results without consistency. The clinical trials that showed meaningful benefits ran for 12 weeks minimum. The Vucon diabetes trial ran 6 months. 6 months of daily consumption. That is how dietary interventions work. Slowly, cumulatively, over time. 1 tablespoon on a random Tuesday is not going to change your postprandial glucose profile. This is a daily practice, like brushing your teeth. The benefit builds through repetition, through consistency, through doing it today and tomorrow and the day after. That is when the labs change, not after 3 days. Here is your complete action plan. 5 steps. Start today. Step 1, go to any grocery store, Walmart, Costco, Trader Joe's, your local market. Buy 1 bag of chia seeds, organic if available. Regular is fine, black or white. The nutritional profile is virtually identical. The bag should cost $3 to $6. That is 3 to 4 weeks of daily use at 12 cents per serving. Step 2, week 1, 1 tablespoon only. Put it in a glass. Add 6 to 8 ounces of room temperature water. Stir. Wait 10 minutes. You will see the water thicken, almost like thin pudding. That is the mucilage gel. Drink the entire glass 15 to 20 minutes before your largest meal of the day. That is the complete week 1 protocol, nothing more. Now I am going to tell you the truth about week 1. You will likely spend more time in the bathroom than usual, especially in days 3 through 6. This is your gut bacteria adjusting to a dramatic increase in prebiotic fiber. It is uncomfortable. It is temporary. Most people fully normalize by day 7 to 9. Do not stop. The discomfort at day 3 or 4 is not your body rejecting the seed. It is confirmation that the fiber is working exactly as it should. Your gut is doing something it has not been asked to do in years. Push through. Step 3, week 2. If week 1 was tolerable, add a 2nd tablespoon, stir it into your breakfast, oatmeal, plain yogurt, a smoothie, always with liquid, never dry. Week 2 is typically when the afternoon cravings begin to quiet, not disappear overnight. Quiet. This is the protein and fiber activating satiety hormones appropriately, not your imagination. Measurable biology. Step 4, week 3. This is the week most patients describe as the turning point. The week the protocol stops feeling like a task and starts feeling like a habit. Energy stability after meals typically improves noticeably. The afternoon crash that many people over 60 experience after lunch begins to diminish. If you monitor blood sugar at home, start checking your 2-hour postprandial reading, 2 hours after your largest meal of the day. That is where Chia does its primary work. That is where you will see the first measurable change. Your fasting number may not shift significantly. The research is clear on this. But your after-meal number, that is where the evidence is strongest. Step 5, week 4 and beyond, bring your home monitoring data to your next doctor's appointment. Ask your doctor specifically about your postprandial glucose, not just fasting, postprandial, 2 hours after a standardized meal. A good doctor will respond to data you bring in and keep a small notebook by your kitchen counter. Track 3 things every day. Energy level after your largest meal on a scale of 1 to 10. Afternoon cravings. Better, same, or worse. And if you check blood sugar at home, your 2-hour postprandial reading. Do this for 30 days. Because the data you collect on your own body is worth more than any clinical trial I can show you on a screen. You are the study. Your results are the only ones that matter for your life. Now, one more thing before you go, and I need you to hear this clearly. Everything I showed you today addresses what happens to your blood sugar during the day, how food enters your gut, how the mucilage gel forms, how absorption slows, how inflammation quiets over weeks of consistent use, how 5 mechanisms work simultaneously on the problem your medication was designed to address from only one angle. But there is an entire half of the story I have not touched yet. What happens while you sleep? For most people over 60, The nighttime hours are where blood sugar does its worst damage. While you are asleep and thinking everything is fine, your liver begins producing glucose around 2 in the morning. Cortisol starts rising hours before your alarm, and everything you did correctly during the day, every tablespoon of chia, every controlled meal, every careful choice, gets partially undone before you ever open your eyes. That is the reason so many people ask me, I do everything perfectly all day. Why is my fasting number still high? Because something happening in the dark while you sleep is working against everything you built during the day. That is what I'm covering next week. And what I'm going to show you involves a morning timing strategy that is likely the opposite of what you've been told about breakfast for diabetics. The data surprised me when I first saw it, and I think it will surprise you too. But here's what I need you to do right now. Type "I finished" in the comments if you watched this entire video through. I read every single one. And then share this with one person, your mother, your father, your husband, your wife. One person who is sitting with lab results that refuse to cooperate no matter how hard they try. One person who has heard the words, "You're doing everything right," and still has no answers. Your share could be the thing that changes what they find when they go home and start searching. You came into this video thinking you might have run out of options, that the system had given you everything it had. Today you learned that was never true. There was always one more piece. The piece that activates the same biological pathway as the most discussed diabetes drug in the world. The piece that addresses your postprandial spike, your gut microbiome, your muscle preservation, your pancreatic protection, and your systemic inflammation. Simultaneously, from the same 2 tablespoons, for $3 a bag, you know it now. And that is the only thing that separates who you were when you pressed play from who you are right now. Take care of yourself today. I mean that genuinely. And I will see you in the next one.